What's going on, everyone? What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, my name is AkeemHaynes. I'm a two-time Olympian, Olympic bronze medalist, author, motivational speaker, and sports commentator. On my channel, we talk boxing, MMA, track and field, and of course, motivation and encouraging content. If this is something that you enjoy, then I hope that you subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get into the video. What's going on, everybody? I don't always get to do a recap video, but I wanted to do some of the fights that I saw last night, and I'm sure many of you have seen as well. But you know how we do on this channel. We don't got time to waste. We just like to get into it. So we are going to start with Cody Crowley versus Abel Ramos. I thought it was a good opening fight. There was a judge that had it even at 114. And I just wasn't sure what that judge was seeing, honestly. But it wouldn't be boxing if there wasn't a little bit of controversy, which we'll talk about a little bit of controversy moving forward in the next fight. But I thought Abel Ramos had some good moments. And the shot that dropped Crowley was initially ruled as the knockdown, and then they reviewed it. I thought that was pretty cool as well, too. And it was not ruled a knockdown. But apart from that, it was a Cody Crowley fight, right? I thought 116, 112 was a pretty good scorecard. Right? Crowley smothered a lot of Ramos's work throughout that fight. He was just right there in the pocket, hitting what was in front of him. And that's really how that fight consistently went throughout the whole entirety of that fight. Also, Cody Crowley got caught with that Abel Ramos left hook as well, too. And that's, it was consistently landing. And that was that same shot that dropped him as well, too. So something to look into for him and to improve on moving forward. But all in all, I thought he'd fought really well. I thought it was a very good performance from him. But also, after hearing Crowley speak after the victory and just him sharing what was on his heart with the suicide and all of things of that nature, right? Like it can be hard. You could tell that he was carrying a lot into this fight, right? And that can be hard to carry all that emotion into the ring. And sometimes when you're carrying the heaviness like that into the ring, you might not have a good performance. And for the fact that he carried that and he performed well, it kind of goes to show what type of mental fortitude and strength that this guy has as well, too. I've had a position like that during my sporting career at the Olympics, actually, and dealing with some stuff away from the track and trying to be mentally in it and locked in to try and compete in a pressure situation and not succumb to your emotion while you're in it. So I thought with the addition of hearing that, it made this performance even that much better. So credit to him. It makes everything a lot more meaningful. Praise and strength and courage to him and his family moving forward. But all in all, good performance from Cody Crowley. Next, let's talk about Jose Valenzuela versus Chris Colbert. Now, there was a lot of people that thought Rayo got robbed, and I mean a lot of people that thought Rayo got robbed. I didn't think he got robbed personally, right? I was talking to my brother Francisco, who's always sharing his thoughts on the fights on the channel in the comment section, but we were talking on Twitter, and here's what I thought. I don't think Rayo got robbed. I also don't think Colbert won by unanimous decision either, right? I thought it was a split decision win for either men. It could have went either way. Some of those rounds were pretty close, or I could have seen it as a draw, but I didn't think Colbert was a clear unanimous decision winner. I thought generally it was a close fight. Valenzuela in the first round, right? I was thinking to myself, man, this guy's going to stop Colbert in the first round. That would have been a massive statement win. But to me, and maybe it was a little bit of his flashback to his last fight, it just looked like he didn't fully commit to the knockout, right? Didn't fully commit to getting Colbert out of there when he was hurt. He would do enough to stumble him to get him hurt, but then he was a little bit hesitant, and that's probably because, De Los Santos did similar things to him, and he did not want to have that happen to him as well. And every round that he dominated, the next round, Colbert would come back and take that round, and he got back into the fight and won a round, right? And it kind of went back and forth that way the majority of the fight. And in the last two rounds, you could say Colbert won as well, too, depending on what you're looking at. But I don't think it was a robbery, but it was an interesting performance from both men. I also didn't like the fact that Chris Colbert was leaning on the ropes and letting Valenzuela tee off on him. I didn't like that at all, nor did I like him standing there and trading shots with the bigger puncher. I just didn't like that style. I know he's confident. I know all of that stuff, but man, it almost didn't work out in his favor. And a lot of people thought that he didn't win that fight, which I completely understand as well too. So it was an interesting fight. You could see both men were learning from their recent fights, but also a little bit hesitant from their recent fights as well too. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next. Personally, I don't know if 135 is the division for Colbert right now. I'm not sure that's the best move moving forward, maybe later down the road. But at the same time, I'm not his trainer, right? But just a thought from what I saw in that fight, maybe these two should run it back one more time to settle all the controversial things that came with it. But, I thought it was a good performance. It had a lot of things that we didn't see coming, some things that we did see coming, but not a bad fight. I wouldn't mind seeing it again so they can square off one more time and settle the score, so to speak, because now there's going to be this controversial victory moving forward, and it's always going to be a little bit of the talk when these two names are mentioned. But let's keep going up the card. Jesus Ramos versus Joey Spencer. I originally said Ramos would win this fight by decision, but the moment the fight started, I said, wait 1 minute. Joey Spencer, right? He's a strong guy, always looks strong. And more times than not, he's the bigger guy than some of the opponents that he's been facing. But Ramos was significantly bigger, right? And not by a little bit, but by a lot, right? And after the first round, I was like, yeah, no way this is going to go the distance. You couldn't even tell him this was Ramos's fight in a year because he didn't look like he missed a beat at all. He looked strong, he looked accurate, he looked powerful, and just imposed his will and his size and his skills on Joey Spencer every single round, right? And credit to Spencer for showing extreme toughness, but I'm glad his corner did throw in the towel and stop the fight. Spencer is a good fighter, but this is one of those fights that you could see, man, that there's levels to this, and he's just not there yet. He's not on Ramos's level just yet. Doesn't mean he won't get there down the road, doesn't have the potential to get there. But on this night, it was clear that Jesus Ramos is just the better fighter. He looked very, very, very good to me in that fight. And I think he's ready for another good matchup, right? He's right on that cusp of a title shot. I feel like maybe 1 or 2 more fights and we can revisit that conversation about a title shot. But he looked very good. He won in dominating fashion, and I'm sure this will be great momentum for him moving forward. Again, we know what we're going to get with Jesus Ramos. He is a tough, quality fighter who has the skills and he has the resume to back it up as well too. We know what we're going to get from him. Thought it was a very good performance from Jesus Ramos. Now let's move up to the main event, David Benavidez versus Caleb Plant. This was a very good fight to watch because we all shared our opinion, right, of who we thought was going to win. But at the same time, you aren't really sure how things are going to go, especially in the world of elite sports. It's boxing. Anything can happen at any given moment because these are two guys who are atop the division, both former champions and operate at a high level in the sport. Early on, Plant was doing his thing as he usually does, right? I even tweeted this. I'm like, man, the bigger ring size is moving in Plant's favor because he was moving very well, slipping in and using his jab, letting off combinations, staying away from David Benavidez's pursuit. You could argue that Caleb Plant won the first 3, 4, maybe even 5 rounds, right? But again, Plant was moving a whole lot, right? And Benavidez always brings that pressure. And Plant was trying to avoid him every round. And even if Benavidez doesn't hit you every round, the pressure he brings wears you down and your legs get a little bit tired and you start to let your guard down a little bit. And then some of those shots touch up your head or touch up your body and you start to slow down and you might not even know it. But you could see Benavidez was starting to slow down some of that movement of Plant, right? He was starting to cut off the ring, started making adjustments and started to let his hands go. And some of those shots that were not landing at the beginning of the fight were starting to get closer. And then they were starting to land. And he was starting to hit the moving target. Plant took some big shots, and it had to have been his pride, his will, and his heart that kept him up. And a little bit of Kenny Bayless getting in the mix of all that, right? And doing what Kenny Bayless usually doesn't do, he did in this fight. But I'm trying not to go there. And I know there are a lot of people also saying that Caleb Plant was holding and tying up a whole lot. But honestly, I can't even be mad at him. I think we all would have done the same thing if we were in Caleb Plant's position, right? Trying not to get hit and prolong the fight. I would have been holding for dear life too. But man, David Benavidez was relentless, right? He doesn't have that one-shot knockout type of power, but he breaks you down in every single round. And it was a very strategic fight for him. People often say Benavidez, he's a brawler and he's kind of one-dimensional. But I thought we got to see that IQ, right? That adjustments, and most importantly, that patience, and how he didn't force the fight or get too emotionally attached to the fight, that he started getting outside of himself and started doing things that he usually doesn't do. It really solidified that he is one of the best in the sport today, especially in that division. Plant was his toughest fight, and even though he didn't get the stoppage, I mean, he put a beating on Caleb Plant, and I was very impressed with his performance, mainly how he stayed mentally locked in and stuck to his game plan. You know, when there's so much back and forth and animosity, right? You just want to get in there and knock your opponent out. And your aggression can actually be the thing that stops you from getting the win, or maybe even you get knocked out. But I was really impressed with his composure inside the ring. It really goes to show his mental fortitude and maturity inside of the ring. And that was very, very, very good to see. And I'll say this as well. Every time I watch Caleb Plant in the ring against these guys, right, I gotta say, like, I like watching his fight. It didn't used to be like that for me, but the man has a lot of skill. He's got heart, and he's a dog, man. I mean, David Benavidez is avoided by a lot of people, right? But he didn't avoid David Benavidez, and even though he was taking a lot of punishment, he didn't back down. He was throwing and fighting up until the last minute of that fight. And I always respect a fighter, any given fighter, whether you haven't won a fight, whether you're a world champion. It takes a lot to get into the ring, period. But my respect for Caleb Plant continues to grow for him, man. And he's going to be back at some point down the road, right? His only loss came from fighting David Benavidez and Canelo Alvarez. That's two pretty good people to lose against when you step into the ring. I really enjoyed that fight. I wouldn't even mind seeing it again down the road. Who knows what will happen next? But I was really impressed with David Benavidez and how he kept himself composed and the maturity that he showed inside of the ring, man. It was a very, 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 very good fight. But those are the fights that I saw. I didn't want to do all of the other fights since I didn't catch those ones. I did hear about the Okolie and David Light fight. A lot of people said that was boring and people were leaving mid-fight. So if you watched it, let me know your thoughts of that fight in the comment section. I didn't catch the Ramirez and Comey fight either, but I was talking to my man Will. You know, he said, man, you know, what do you think about this fight? And we were kind of talking about it briefly. And I felt like Ramirez, he was due for a stoppage. And I thought he needed to beat Richard Comey in convincing fashion. And sure enough, he got the stoppage later in that fight. So I didn't see the fight. I'm going to have to go back and watch the fight. If you watch that card, let me know how those fights went. But that's all I got for today. Just a quick recap video of my initial thoughts. I'm going to try to be able to be more consistently with the recap fights. But let me know your thoughts of all of the fights in the comment section below. What did you like? What didn't you like? Who do you think each fighter should fight next? Definitely let me know in the comment section below. But yeah, man, I appreciate each of you for your continued support of the channel. You know, I'd love to get to 10K subs by the end of the year, and I need your help to get there. I know we can. So if you're getting value from this channel, then like, comment, subscribe, share the channel with a friend. It would be greatly, greatly appreciated. Also as well, too, if you're in the community, this is what the community is about. I've been doing more polls as well, too, so we can all give our perspective on how we think each fight is going to go. I understand people are betting a whole lot of money on these fights, and I wanted to do the polls just so everybody can see how what other people think about the fights as well, too. If we can all help make a little bit of extra money and really gather our thoughts as we're making certain picks, man, we all should do that as well too, because this is a community and I want every person to win as well. So again, I appreciate each of you. I appreciate everyone's support. I appreciate you taking the time to listen, to watch. I try and make the best videos as I can, try to make them engaging, try to make them energetic, and just try and make the video as best as it can be. So again, I appreciate you. Thank you for watching, and we will definitely see you next time.